2021. It's a 24-hour event with 33 guest speakers who are sharing their wisdom and exploring the connection between science and spirituality. Today's guest is a guest speaker at this event. To register your place and find out more, go to www.higherselfexpo.com. Hello everyone, it's Louisa Tanner-Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I'm having one of my lovely Feel Good conversations this morning. I say this morning, it's actually afternoon, it's just gone noon here in Portugal, where I'm recording from. I don't know what time zone are you in? Let us know when you join us. I'm joined today by an amazing person called Jennifer Barraccu, who is also known as Jenni B. She's got quite a following now. She's also known under the hashtag Reformed Pharmacist, which I'm going to be asking her about very shortly. But she's got a broad knowledge of an experience of science and spirituality, and she really believes in teaching humans that healing and happiness happens within. So I want to really explore her journey today, and her path to finding herself, and also how she helps people to find themselves too. So let's jump into the unknown together. I'm going to bring her on now. So wherever you are, show some appreciation for her. Here she comes. Hi, Jenni. How are you?
Hi, Louisa.
In the house.
Thank you so much for having me here in your Feel Good Conversations. I feel honored and I'm so happy to be here today to speak to you and all the contributions of the people.
I'm really, really excited. So yes, you're right. Like you've raised the fact that this is a feel good conversation, but the reason why we're talking, other than the fact that it just kind of feels good and we're kind of like our work has a kind of collaboration, doesn't it? Like the way we both work is there's an overlap, and it's good to have people like you having a conversation. I love to create these opportunities for people to have a bit of a learning opportunity and to ask questions. But we're also both we're both guest speakers at the Higher Self Expo, aren't we? Later on this year in July. So the theme of this Higher Self Expo is science meets spirituality, and of course you're perfect for that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about during that show?
Yeah, thank you, Louisa. It will be exciting. I'm already looking forward to it. It's going to be a big event, and we'll be joined by lots of lovely, amazing people. It's going to be super cool for everybody who's interested and doesn't even has touched so far the area, the field of spirituality so much. I think it will be really interesting as well. And as you've mentioned, science and spirituality will be the big topic. And I am, based on my scientific training of being a pharmacist, a psychologist, and also had a bit of training in nutritional science, all this summed up, not really convincing me, brought me back to the more natural alternative approach of helping people. And I'm going to talk about a bit like here, finding the balance between that. And I think we called it inspired by you, building bridges between spirituality and science. Yeah.
Fantastic. That sounds really good. And so we're going to be exploring how to get the balance, funnily enough, between mainstream and alternative today, because that's a camp that I found myself in my whole career. I always trained as an astrologer and trained as a coach. I trained in hypnotherapy. I trained in NLP. And yet it took me years to out myself in that field. And so instead what I did was I used all my coaching skills, my NLP skills, my hypnosis skills in working for corporate UK, banking, insurance. And because it just felt too difficult to bridge the divide from going from what's known as mainstream into the alternative. So before I ask you about the actual balance itself, I'd like to know what attracted you to study science in the first place and to become a trained pharmaceutical technical assistant. Is that right? What attracted you to science in the first place? What took you there?
I mean, I've had this. So my A level was really based in nutritional science, and I loved the biochemistry and knowing about what happens with my body when I drink a coffee, what happens with my body if I eat a cucumber, and all that. Really down on the molecular level, I was really drawn to that. I wanted to know all about it.
Yeah.
So initially, I was thinking to study biochemistry in Switzerland in one of the really renowned technical universities, but. Life sometimes leads you the way, and it wasn't meant to be. And then I went on a world trip first to digest this. And as I came back, I thought, you know what? This whole pharmacy thing will actually bring me to this biochemical knowledge as well, from a different perspective. And also, plus, I will, that's what I thought at that time, I will learn to help people healing.
Excellent. What a lovely idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see we've got a couple of people in the chat room, so please do let us know where you're listening from, and if you've got some comments on it, or if you've got some questions for Jenni B. For instance, like if you have found your magical balance between the mainstream and the alternative, let us know what your tips are. You know, top tips are appreciated, right? So let us know. But yeah, please do let us know where you're calling from or listening in from, so we can give you a lovely shout out, because I like to do that. So you'd trained in nutritional science and were exploring like the effects of coffee versus cucumbers, etc., and also went traveling around the world. What did you notice when you were out and about in approaches from other cultures to health and healing?
I mean, I think the one of the most remarkable travels I had was when I was in Yemen when I was 16, a country where you would not usually go for holiday. And I was lucky enough that I had somebody who was like a development helper over there. So I could enjoy the exploration of that country with somebody in guidance, let's say, because as a blonde, blue-eyed woman in Yemen, tough thing. But when I came back, and that was kind of the assumption I had from lots of my travels. Unfortunately, the poorer the country, the more loving the people, and even though, you know, many of them never traveled or never really got out of their little tiny space or system, some of them had so tremendous big knowledge about what is going on in the world, what is important in life. And, you know, they never even saw school. I mean, I think we both pretty surely know it's not really life skills you get taught in school anyways. But it was so interesting for me to see, and it made me start doubting a lot about the system I was living in and grown up in and raised in, Germany. And Germany and the UK are not very far away from the that moaning does make is a big pillar in everyday's life. And I've always been not really feeling this. And when I came back out of traveling really poor countries as well, of course, I couldn't agree with that. Even though I still went into the scientific training after that, I just wanted to have a degree because you need a paper where it says who you are and what you are. And I thought I'd go with the German highly renowned papers that you can get there before I conquer the world with whatever. And I just wanted to leave again. Then it took I think 13 years until that really happened, and I made it out of Germany again, and I did all my educational stuff. But like you said, it is quite a journey in order to understand what you're really thriving for, and then having the courage to actually go this step and stand up for it.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. We've got a few messages here, so let's just start sharing them. So we're joined by the lovely Tanya, also known as TC Aya. And also, you know, from her beautiful website, Inspiring Passion. Hello, my dear beautiful goddesses, my goddess friends. Lovely to listen to you. Tanya, it's an absolute pleasure. We were just talking about you before we went live, saying how much we loved you. So thanks for joining us. We've got Jimmy White watching from Baltimore, USA. So it's really cool. So we've got people watching us from Portugal, from the US, and also we've got Stephen Wells joining us from Reading in England. So welcome to you all. How, just a question to you guys, how have you found balance between the mainstream and alternative? Is that something that you do? Aha, we've got some intel here. So Stephen Wells is a biochemist come Reiki master. Come business coach, so mixing all of those worlds. Stephen, what's your advice on finding balance? How have you found it? Making that transition from mainstream sort of accepted paper-based science, you know, where you get like this accreditation to your name, and being a Reiki master and a business coach, mixing it all up. I noticed when I made the transition from being a business coach, my mum and dad used to tell everyone that I was a business coach and how much I was earning and who I was going to do consulting for, you know. And then when I outed myself as an astrologer, I noticed they didn't say that much about my career to people. You know, the kind of adulation out to their friends kind of stopped. And so there is a real sort of like perceived value to what you do. So I'd be really interested to know how you do it. I mean, do you have to just like learn to just to be yourself and accept people's comments? So yeah, how did you do that after 13 years, Jenny? How did you decide to leave the safety of having your paper with your accreditation? You know, how did you find the courage within yourself?
I mean, in my past, in my childhood, I've been moving quite a lot, so I was really used to starting from zero again.
Yeah.
But you're right, to some extent, this safety net is kind of imprinted in us. And you know, I was working in the public pharmacies then for more than 10 years in Germany, and I saw all them people wanting to have all them pills for all them issues and all that. And one of the things that I probably said the most was, you know, your body is talking to you. You can listen or you can take a pill, but you're going to be back here and wanting other pills because it's not going to work. It's not going to be a sustainable solution. And sooner or later, I mean, it was, you know, there's all these things, they work together then. So you get more and more science for all this. And I was already reaching out. I mean, funny enough, during all my educational scientific trainings, it was like I started with the pharmaceutical training, thinking that I will get to learn how to heal people and all that, as in also how to actually formulate medication, all that, you know, when it's not available, to actually create something for you, like it was very, very, very far in the past, where pharmacy was really a cool thing, but you had all the herbs and all that stuff mixed together for you individually, which is not anymore. Now it's just about throwing pills over the counter. And I've already noticed during that training that I'm not really coherent with all that, but I'm a finisher, so I finished. And then during all the work at the time in the pharmacies, I've already spoken to a lot of people who were sort of like trainers or already stepped a little bit into alternatives. And, you know, how did you do that? And ask them. And there's this beautiful saying, when you want to find yourself, don't ask anybody else for the way. But it's interesting to get all the ideas on how other people did it. And bottom line, whatever the most common thing was that none of them ever regretted it to take that step out.
That's interesting, isn't it? I've yet to hear anyone who's made the step from mainstream to alternative, or who bridges the two. I've yet to hear anyone say that they regret doing that.
Yeah, not a second. Yeah. And so at one point, I clearly felt my body talking to me. Yeah. So because you probably know that from your experience as well, being in the corporates, the more you do things you're actually not aligned with and you're not agree with. And you know, particularly, I've never been really a fan of the big pharmaceutical industry because doesn't take much to understand that they are not really interested in healing people, because otherwise they wouldn't make any money, and that's what it all based in. So, but still, finding your balance in between there, and more recommending the alternative things like biochemical things and hemopathics and all that. But it's not really the solution. You're still in the middle of that system. You're still witnessing so many people going down this downward spiral, which is terrible to witness. And then I was faced with exactly that my body was clearly telling me, no. So I was like, okay, so what I'm going to choose? What am I going to choose? Am I going to go back into the back drawer and pull out whatever is necessary? Because that's one really common thing in a pharmacy, whereas we all learn, I think, to function. And, when you have a flu, come on, take some whatever, paracetamol, whatever, and, make your way through it. We don't allow ourselves to give us the time to heal, which is the best thing, just to give your body the space and the time. And particularly in this field, it's very common that you then get to hear, oh, well, you know exactly what you need to take, so there's no excuse actually for you to stay home with just the flu, with just diarrhea or whatever, all these things. Not even thinking about the effect it has on all my colleagues and all the people, on the clients and all that. It's really ridiculous. So from that point, I was like, I'm definitely not going to go to the drawer and take one of them tablets or two or whatever, or get a psychopharmaceutical drugs in order to cope with all that pressure and my incoherence I feel. And then and I recommend this to everyone who's in doubt, and maybe some of our listeners can also share that this was maybe one of their steps, to really take a break in order to give yourself the opportunity to recheck all this you're in. Because when we are running in the hamster wheel towards the burnout, there's no capacity to look right or left. All your energy is needed to function in it, and to run, chase all the things you get told they're necessary to be chased in order to have a happy, fulfilled life, and la 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 la. And I mean, you could probably agree on that. This is just terribly tearing as well in hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, I've had two really big bouts of I'm going to say mental illness. Actually, I mean, it manifested as chronic fatigue syndrome, and like the second bout of it, I was actually in bed for 13 months. I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. It totally affected my life. But when I think about the thinking behind it that was going on leading up to me being ill, I didn't know how to proceed in my life. I didn't know how to take the next step. I felt paralyzed to make a choice. And so you think of these words like, I can't move forwards, I can't take a step, I'm paralyzed. And then boom, there I am. I can't actually move. I'm stuck in bed. It's shocking how it happens, actually. In fact, we've got quite a few, we've got a lot of participation. I actually feel like my beloved husband today. I don't normally have this many comments, so I'm glad he put a shout out for us. So we've got Tanya saying, I found balance by being absolutely unapologetically true to my heart. Yes, definitely. We're also joined by Debbie Dews. Hiya, girlies. Transition can be made from reducing stress from your life and coming out of the political world and living a more humble life. That helped me transgress. Yeah, I would absolutely 100% say that that's kind of the journey that my family has taken, to be able to do that. And we've had to live on less money. Carl and I both work part-time, so between us, we bring in one full wage, but that allows us to live in the way that we want. And we realized that if we were to both work full time, we would have to put the kids in school, and then we'd be running around all the time. So yeah, we did make a change. Did you have to learn to live with less or live in a different way, Jenny?
I mean, it's really funny, Louisa. Thanks, Debbie, for that comment, and all the others. It's really interesting what you say there, because I think this is one of the big, really, really big issues that we like you said, and I'm not even having kids, but generally you have this full-time job, and then you need to work. Half of your wage is going down for the rent. If you have kids, there's already a big part going out for school or child childcare, and I always said, it's so ridiculous. Perfect, you do it perfectly. So why would you not just work less and then look after the kids yourself? So you don't have to pay for some stranger to look after them, but you don't even know what they will teach them. You don't know their life attitude. And in Germany, it's a big thing to become a teacher only when you try to study something else and you didn't like that. So then you become a teacher. And I would never, ever want.
That's your second choice.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is where you send your children to learn from? No, that's ridiculous. So I really like that. That it's very true. Yeah, great choice.
We've also got loads of comments coming in. So Stephen Wells is saying, for me, having all the aspects allows me to meet people where they are and help them translate what they say, in brackets do, into what they're trying to say do, hearing them on all levels. And I'm guessing from your scientific background and your Reiki background, and also with your coaching background, I really hear that you can do that. In fact, it's great when you can see it from so many different perspectives. I think people can feel really listened to. Gary Austin is here in the house as well. Hi, Gary. Great to see two very inspirational and brave people appearing together in the same place. Sometimes I think the simple things in life matter most and are very much overlooked. Wow. Totally agree with that. Having food, a safe place to sleep, and decent health are the things we all need to build a happy, healthy life. I think you're in agreement with that, aren't you, Jenny?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that contribution, Gary. You're so right. And it's particularly those things we take for granted so often, isn't it? And we don't even appreciate all these little things. And I say as well very often, when it's the typical German moaning about first world problems, I say, okay, somebody pointing a gun at you, you got food in the fridge, you got a bed to sleep in with a roof over the top. You got it. No need to moan. And health is definitely priceless, and getting to know and finding out that you actually have so much power over that yourself, not relying onto any other entities or institutions. This also is, in my experience, a great uplift in your life and in your life quality and the joy of experiencing things.
Perfect. We've got a couple of comments from Jimmy coming in. So Jimmy White from the US is saying, leadership trainer who began integrating softer skills into workshops and then moved into mind-body training, supported by breakthroughs in neuroscience. That's interesting that you did that, actually. When I was a corporate trainer, I started putting in NLP and hypnotic text into training sessions and doing soft skills. So I kind of did a very similar thing. I didn't go into the full body training, but it is interesting, isn't it, how you can start off in one area and then go more softer skills. So it feels more in alignment to who you are. He's also saying bringing science into traditional audiences lets us explore more options for growth and healing. I love it. Great. We've also got fantastic 50s. Jenny, how right you are. The pharmaceutical companies do not want to cure people. There is no money for them in healthy people. Yeah, kind of got to have a captive audience, don't you? So you have to keep them a bit poorly. Do you think it's just the pharmaceutical industry, or do you think they've got other co-collaborative opportunities? Like surely the pharmaceuticals can't just sell things that help but also deteriorate the health at some level. How do they manage to make so much money?
Well, I think, and this is something I'm going to talk about at the Higher Self Expo as well. First, before I get there, just wanting to go back on something you said, where you said you couldn't move, and what you were really unable to move. That's exactly it. As when you don't want to listen, that's okay, but sooner or later your body forces you to listen, and it drags you down. So, and then you kind of have to go through it. But great question there from you, Louisa. Thank you. In my belief, it is a whole big system, and I think it starts, and that's what I'm going to talk about at the expo as well. I think it starts with our education of health, disease, life, and death. That, that when you're a child and you fall on your knee, you get a Band-Aid, or you get disinfectant on it and all that. So you always learn from a very little age on that healing is something that comes from the outside.
Yes.
Then we grow up learning happiness is something that comes from the outside.
Yeah.
It comes through the BMW. It comes through the fancy clothes. It comes through the fancy house and all these things, which I think all people already stepped into the alternatives. And what Gary said so beautiful, it's actually the little things in life that make the big difference, and it's already all within, either health, happiness, or love. And I think this whole system with the pharmaceutical industry to make them people sick is on one hand, I think the money-driven capitalistic system we're in, where it's not so much about values like being a lovely, kind person who is there for others to listen and to support them, and through this gaining even more love and all that. It's more about how much is on your account, what are all the great accreditations you have collected over the time. So in your case, all the NLP, all the hypnotherapeutical stuff. In my case, all the scientific degrees and all that. You really collect. And isn't that also, maybe you can share this as well, that before you really step into the alternative, I caught myself always thinking, yeah, but first I need this other degree, and then I need this other degree, and then I need this, and then I think I'm ready. But coming back to your question, I think our whole food industry is also a big pillar in that whole thing. I mean, I've always asked myself, working in the pharmacy as well, and even before, so it's interesting, how come our medical research since 100 years is so much evolved, but still we have more sick people than we've ever had before?
Definitely.
And I'm getting still goosebumps when I'm saying this. And then I thought, what is the thing we share the most in our world, despite the society we're living in? But it's the food, isn't it? And you can even buy it in a biological supermarket when it's been lying there under the artificial light for a week before it actually comes to you, and you don't know what happened to it beforehand. Yeah. All those things, all this genetic manipulated, starting with the seeds, putting all the herbicides and pesticides on it. I mean, it's not natural for tomatoes to look all the same. It's not natural for cucumbers to be just straight and all this. We have these crazy rules about how food needs to look like before it enters the supermarket and stuff like this. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. So all this stuff to make it last longer or look prettier and all that. I mean, this is all things that go into our body. And even if the substance is not left in it, it's the energy that's still left in it. So there is no nutritional value in most of the food you're getting. And with all that biological movement, if you're not growing it yourself, that one field where it's biological carrots, the conventional grown carrots next to it with all the herbicides don't say, oh, stop, no, over there, there's the biological field. I'm not allowed to go over there. So water and wind do all that. And so from there, I think a pharmaceutical industry does grow a big audience, a big client audience for them to make sure they get all the money. Plus the vaccines kids get so early based on mercury, formaldehyde and all that stuff. Then, I mean, just speaking about this big group of ADHD in English, ADHD kids and all that. Kids are not designed to sit still for 1.5 hours in a row 5 times a day. You know, if I would be in that age of where it was trendy to describe those pills, I would have been the top one to get them, huh? And then and there's honestly, there's parents, you won't believe it, Lisa. They come in the pharmacy and they say, for the weekend, can we maybe double the dose because we have visitors around and I don't want the kid to be, you know, oh my God, you won't believe it. And that's the other thing. It's all talked down as, you know, oh, that's just normal. That's just a pill and la, la, la. Not just in that regard, but generally. I mean, contraception for women. And in England, I think it's from 16 plus, kids get it for free just to avoid unwanted pregnancy. I mean, could they not just get free condoms? Don't get me wrong, but and all these things that is all talked down on the impact it actually has on the body, and it that we kind of absolutely lose contact and connection with our own body, with how it works, how it communicates. Again, just going into this function. If you have a headache, you just take a pill. Easy as that. And so this whole image and all these things, they come together, like the food industry, the general perception about it, the expectations of you, how to function in our society. I think this is the big ground for the pharmaceutical industry to grow in. And I mean, just really simple things like the milk lie. Yeah, milk is good for your bones. No, it's not. Any calcium based on an animal product is actually taking calcium out of your bones. So all this, but there's such a big lobby behind it. There was, I can't remember the name of the film, but it was really interesting documentary, and it was going through the recommendations of any sort of organizations all over the world, particularly America, and how they the food diets they're recommending. And it was the American Heart Association, I think it was, to start with, recommending to have a meat-based diet in order to avoid heart attacks. And I was like, yeah. So, but it's interesting that people give away the responsibility to look after them, their health, our greatest good, basically, to institutions and to others, as if they know better because they studied or whatever. I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah, I completely agree on so many levels there, because one of the things that Carl and I do with our family is, like, I've observed over the years that the state has become more involved in how you raise your children, and the doctors are more sort of involved in how you live your life. And we've got all these false experts, or experts who have training, but they're not really taking into consideration who you are, your unique circumstances. They can't possibly know everything about you. They're giving a very sort of standard advice, and you have to question that. Like, why are we giving our authority away, and why aren't we using our own intuition? Like, I'm not surprised that people are, coming in, or were coming into you asking for extra medication because of, something going on for your children. When I was growing up, my parents were encouraged to have my teeth fluoridated to give me and my sister these treatments. And one of the things that is heavily lobbied is that you give vaccinations to ensure that your children are safe, or that you circumcise male babies, in particular in America. There are all these things that parents are challenged on really early on, and I think the way that they're handled is possibly to break the bond between parent and child, to get the parent reacting like getting authority and reassurance from experts, rather than working with the child themselves. And it's really confusing when you become a parent, for sure. But I can see that when you take, like, I remember when I had glandular fever when I was 16, the doctor said to my parents, there's nothing wrong with her. She's just trying to get off school. Just keep sending her to school. And my parents believed it. They absolutely, even though I was in bed and I was saying, look, I'm really sick and I had a temperature, they could see that was going on, but they couldn't divorce themselves from the recommendation of the doctor. And it's dangerous. We've got loads of comments, so I just want to thank all of our guests. So this is an interesting one from Jimmy. My break was a heart attack in Singapore and then surgery. So often we have a dark night of the soul, or something happens that actually forces us to make that change. And I was going to ask you, did you have a sort of dark moment, or just that moment where something clicked? With me, I remember when I was in hospital, part of a scheme on studying chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was told that in a few years' time I'd be in a wheelchair and I'd be like this patient over there. And I remember seeing this person in a wheelchair and then seeing somebody coming in on a stretcher behind, and I made this decision, it's just not going to happen. I refuse that as an outcome for me. And I don't know that that's what gave me the opportunity to heal, but that was like my moment where something turned. Stephen is saying it's thanks to Carl that he's here. Well, I'm very, very pleased for that. Jimmy's also saying he also saw Carl's show this morning and came in. Debbie Dews is saying I had 3 children and chose to be a single mum, main breadwinner. I don't know how I kept that balance, but I did. I have to take my hat off to you, Debbie. Carl and I share childcare, and we've got 3 children together, and it's full on for us. I don't know how you did it. You deserve a medal. Well done for sticking to your guns. Stephen's saying, I hate the concept of work-life balance. Work is a small part of life, not something that should be balanced with. Yes, isn't that so true?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, isn't it? That work in a general 9 to 5, it takes so much of your time and space and energy that there's nothing left. I mean, we all know that, like we said, running in the hamster wheel, and then you're stressing for the one day you have off in the week eventually to meet all the friends and having all the social contacts and clean the house and get all the things done you need to get done and la la la. So it's just constant rushing.
Well, it's no wonder people don't want to stop and take stock, because they're probably thinking if they stop to consider the alternative, they'll fall behind on this rat race. I'll be honest, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to, I was nervous about us coming to Portugal, because I thought if we come to Portugal to live on less money, if ever we need to go back to the UK, we won't be able to afford to.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's, I think, one of the big pressure points as well, but the money in general.
Yeah.
And it was interesting what you said there earlier with these authorities. And lucky enough, I never had much trust in doctors due to experiences I had and understanding that their training is mainly supported and sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry, telling them all that. I know exactly what you mean with how come we trust somebody who might have eventually saw us for 2 minutes, now knowing what's going on with us more than actually ourselves, where we live with this body for all the time. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, we're lobbied at. I remember when I was in the UK with our first child, who's now 9, but like we put on CBeebies, like the BBC children's channel, and there was this program called Dr. Raj or something, and there's this like cool hip young doctor, and he's normalizing going to get your vaccines, he's normalizing ADHD, he's normalizing all sorts of things. And so in each episode a little child gets ill, and they go to the doctor, and he does something like checks in the ear. And I guess at some level it's to reassure children. It's to teach them that, sometimes we get ill. But I think it goes a bit too far, because it teaches children that they are going to be ill. And when they are, they will have these invasive procedures happen. And it always shocked me. I always turned it off. But it looks really, really normal. It looks like a really lovely little cartoon. And stroke program, it's got these little puppets in, so it all looks really cool for kids. But I really think that happens at an early age. And of course, if parents are really busy doing stuff and they put the TV on to keep their kids amused for 5 minutes while they're making dinner, you don't have as much control. So I do think that happens. And also, I think pharmaceuticals are the biggest advertisers on American news, aren't they? I don't know if we have news so much in the UK anymore, but they have a massive lobbying appeal.
It's after.
In America, England. I don't know if it's the same in Germany, but I know in a lot of different countries, there's no liability for pharmaceuticals over vaccines. Sorry, I keep going on about vaccines, but if you think about it, like normal pills, like people that take statins, they have to get tested for a certain period of time and have really extensive trials, and the pharmaceutical companies are held fully liable for any damage that would happen. But that doesn't happen with vaccines. So how have the pharmaceutical agencies managed to get rid of the liability, the legal liability for safety in America? I mean, that's most of my lifetime. It's not just a recent thing. Yeah. Was it in the 80s that happened? I can't remember.
I don't know exactly how it happened, but it probably was down to some case they have lost in court and then had to pay X amount of money. And of course, the state being with all the lobbyism being a big being somebody who benefits big time of the income of pharmaceutical industries there, and also still wanting to hold up that big fraud of we are here to care for you. I think they kind of needed that in order to keep all that image up. So they just been taking the responsibility for that away. I mean, if you want to go down that route, it's going really crazy in Germany, for example, and I think Portugal as well. We don't actually have a proper government. We are still actually under the law from America back in the Second World War, and we are actually a company in Germany. There is held in Switzerland, interestingly, because taxes and stuff. So and that is so absolutely crazy. So the rights we think we're having on that legal point of view, we're actually not. But therefore, we have much other more valuable rights, as in to look after our health ourselves. We're not forced to go to the doctor. We absolutely have the right for happiness in our lives, and that is down to us, and not to be looked in any other device or materialistic thing or partner or whatever. And even though for a lot of people, this whole word responsibility, self-responsibility is like shockingly terrifying. But at the end of the day, it's much easier than giving it away. You will feel much more powerful. You'll gain much more control about your life. And I mean, I like to ask people to think about a situation where they had this gut feeling and they've been walked over it and ignored it. And what happened afterwards? You usually get a backslap, proper.
Yeah.
And what happened in the moments where you actually trusted in that gut feeling and when you went with it? And usually universe does reward you big time, or whoever you want to call it's there, or even yourself. So is that not one of the value? Is that not worth more than any research you could possibly read in a scientific paper?
Yes, let us know about your hunches and what's worked. Before we move on, I just want to share all these. We've got so many coming in. So, so Fantastic 50s is saying, yes, growing your own food is paramount to being healthy. And yes, you are very blessed if you have a big garden. And like you were saying earlier, where do people have the time to do that? Like if they're having to work full time and just to keep their house, when do they get the time? Like, how can we make it work that we can start growing again? Debbie Dews is saying, in England, ADHD kids are given adult medication. It's shocking. When I was 7 or 8, I was given adult medication for tonsillitis and I was hospitalized. And it was really freaky. Gary said, it may be a blokey macho thing, but instinct tells me that being down on the floor and feeling immobilized just means you're going to get more of a metaphorical kicking. So you haul yourself up and stumble away with your injuries, mental or physical, and heal the best you can. Trouble is, the scars remain, and the only time you talk about these scars is when someone else comments about them, and then you cover them up in embarrassment. Or in the man cave, because I know you guys have got that resource. But yes, you're right. We'll come back to that. I'd like to talk about the difference in the way men and women heal. Would you be happy to do that in a second once we've had a look at the comments? Is that all right, Jenny? Jenny, yeah. We've got another. We've got Jenny from Belgium saying, even the fact that a tomato has to meet so many requirements can also be extended by the fact that people look at that look for the perfect image widely spread throughout the media that they want to meet at any cost. Yes, we're really almost ashamed of imperfection these days. We've got, does fear play a part? The media telling people to take statins after a certain age? I think so. You're nodding. Did you see many sort of obvious fear-based programs going on in your job, Jennifer?
Oh, absolutely.
What tricks get played?
I mean, just what you were saying with the whole parenthood, childhood thing, and then you get told as a parent, you need to vaccine your kids so they can go to school and they can join the system so they can be successful and la 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 la. And if you're not doing this, you take away all these opportunities from your kids and you to be blamed and all that. It starts really, really early, and fear is one of the biggest control factors. And then the same with food. If you're not giving your child any meat or any milk and la 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 la, it's gonna die because it's lacking all of the very good things it needs and la la la. Really. So but again, of course, and then if you are already a person who tends to, there's two principles people usually work under. It's the authority principle or the majority principle. So if it's the right person, if it's the one you believe in and it tells you need to do that, you will do that. And we both know, I think, what a white coat does to people. They forget.
It hypnotizes them.
Crazy. Even in the pharmacy in Germany, in pharmacies you usually wear a white coat. I could have told them there was no Second World War, they would have believed it. Easy. Really, it's crazy. And secondly, then the majority, and I think we see this happening at the moment very, very much. Okay, if everybody's getting the vaccine, I need to get the vaccine. If this is to be necessary to create safety in the world, then I need to do it. And it's with so many things, putting us kids to school and la 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 la. So fear is definitely a big one.
Yes, absolutely. Gary's saying, my doctor told me I hadn't got a chest infection and she knew best. A few days later, I was in hospital with pneumonia. You know your own body, so listen to it and don't be afraid to take charge of it. Yes. I'm really wanting, we try to get our kids in touch with their bodies. Like when they say they feel something, we will ask them to describe it. And rather than say, that's not really going on, we'll really sort of like explore it with them. Okay, Jimmy's saying, one of many motivators for us moving to Portugal, fingers crossed, is the quality of life inducing healthcare costs. Life is the quality of life, including healthcare costs. Yeah. Yes, there's lots of people that have signed up for the social care here. And from what I hear, the people that have done it have been very, very happy. I do know of some people that get ill and then end up moving back to their homeland. Because the kind of treatment that they wanted might have been more expensive. The way we do it is we have our own private healthcare that we can just sort of pick up and put down, mainly because we don't want to be signed up with any doctor that sends us routine messages about what we should be doing to our children and not doing. So we try and stay out of it, but have healthcare by the side so we don't look irresponsible. Yeah, but I do think the Portuguese are quite interested in their health. Like you go to supermarkets and you can buy all sorts of herbs. So there's a lot of people that do know about traditional ways of healing. Yeah, but they're very proud of their healthcare here, I've noticed. People are very sort of pro healthcare. Debbie Doos is saying, I can relate totally to you, Louise, with CFS. My body out of... Hang on. I think I'm reading this wrong. I can totally relate to you, Louise. I have CFS. My body has butt out. I had 3 jobs. Then I caught virus from hospital. It was like being hit by a train, bedbound for 3 months. I decided to fight the pain barrier and push myself. I had over 10 years. Sorry, I'm looking in 2 different places to try and read this. One is slightly bigger, so I'm trying to look with the bigger font because I haven't got my glasses on. I had it for over 10 years, but then things got better with the changes that I made in my life. That's interesting. I manage mine, and I consider that it's completely gone. But every now and again I do get a bit poorly. But I think you can manage it with your lifestyle. Not so many bad days now, less stress. I decided, Jen, to stop taking the vast amount of medication I was on and started afresh, changing diet, introduced light exercise, and learned to, it might come back in the next comment, hang on. Learn to live. It's cut off. I think your comment's a little bit too long, sadly, so it's cut off. But you've also added, Louise, perhaps we can make a program on this. Absolutely. Yes, let's do it. Then Jenny has also added, the last time, long ago, I went to my GP. He said to me, I had my fibromyalgia doesn't exist. I replied, okay, for my sake, call it what you want, but I'm feeling it and I will try and heal myself. Well, I hope you did, Jenny. It's horrible when that happens. I think it's very difficult for doctors. My best friend in the UK is a GP, and she showed me the big folder that they studied with, And we sat down one day and she said, have a look at this. And she said, okay, granted it was from 10 years ago, but have a look at this. And I looked at it and we went through and I said, how much of that is about nutritional healing? And she said, there isn't any. And I said, what, nothing? And she said, well, there might have been half a day. And she flicked through. And then I said, out of curiosity, how much of that is on the immune system and vaccines? Because like, obviously, everything is about vaccines these days. That's how most medicine seems to be at the moment. It's about vaccines. And she had half a day's training on vaccines. And so we actually flicked through the folder that this GP, an English GP, had in her official training to become a fully fledged doctor. And there was a few pages which amounted to half a day's training. But the training itself, it wasn't how they work, what's in them. There was no information about that. The only training they got, and granted, this was 10 years ago, the only training she got was a list of the schedules that children and adults should be having, you know, like when you're 3 months, this is what you need. It didn't say how, the science behind it, nothing. When you're 6 months, when you're a year. And that was their training. And I was really shocked. So I think it's really hard for a lot of these doctors who, I believe that people go into these careers because they absolutely believe in what they're doing and want to help people. I 100% believe that. But then a lot of these illnesses like CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, they're like these almost like invisible illnesses. You know, like they escape detection almost. Like when I had glandular fever, they told me I had it, even though they couldn't test me for it. We were just told that's what I had. So I don't think it's very clear for them. And all I was given was antidepressants and antibiotics. I was on antibiotics for about 10 years. Can you imagine what that did to my health? So you're like the reformed pharmacist. I'm the reformed pill junkie.
Because particularly what Jenny is saying there, and you guys with the CFS and the fibromyalgia, particularly these psychosomatic diseases where you have the experience with your friend there, GPs and medical trainings, they're not trained for this. That's why they're going crazy with this, and they keep on telling you, oh, that's just something you imagine. That's not there. It can't be it. So whenever, and in my belief, any dis-ease is basically there's something going wrong with your thinking. And that's why your body is giving you the information, okay, you did it until here, you did it like this, and it just about worked, but now we really need to change something. And it starts here or here. And it's really interesting that so often, then again, it's been talked down and like, no, you imagine all this, you imagine all this, you imagine all this. And they really can't handle it because there's nothing in the way they are trained. There's nothing they can do with it.
Yeah.
There is no pill for fibromyalgia except painkillers, but they're not helping. I think all people who ever had this chronic fatigue syndrome, you can drink as much coffee as you want. You're not going to be feeling any better, or take an antidepressant or anything. It's not helping. Yeah. So and for me, this is also so interesting. How come we have so many more mental health problems nowadays than we've ever had before? And it's not that some of those are just made up. It's clearly your body talking to you, and it's clearly us not thinking about these signs and always pushing it away and really not taking it serious. So it's a really great job what you do there with your kids, that you trying to build up a really healthy relationship to their bodies, and that you ask. And that is, if you have a doctor who does that, what you just told me, and asks you to describe the feeling you have, that's an indicator for that it could be a good doctor.
Well, we do actually. We have a family homeopath.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
And so he knows my history, my mum's history, my grand's. We've got a bit of an echo here, but he knows the history of our whole family and how we all interact, and it makes a huge difference. And we're not afraid to use Western medicine. This is the thing. This is about finding the balance between mainstream and alternative. We tend to go to alternative first and mainstream as when we have to. It's like the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, but I always say as well, the mainstream is really good to get a diagnosis. Yeah. And if you know what's wrong, then you can take your own approach of the way you think healing or what could help you, and really trust your gut feeling there. And it's not about feeling silly to do that, or it's not, if you think it might not be accepted by the people around you, just don't tell them and just do it. And then you will see the outcome. And afterwards, it's well, how do you say that in English? It's easier to say sorry than ask for permission or something like that.
Oh, this is Carl's technique. He says act first and ask for forgiveness if you need to. So he makes the decision to do something. He doesn't ask for permission, because it takes ages for people to say, oh yes you can, oh no you can't. So in every one of his jobs, he decides what he's going to do and he just does it. And then if it goes wrong, he's okay to apologize and say sorry about that.
And speaking about taking the responsibility for your own health, again, it's okay to get indicators in for how people would do it and all that, but at the end of the day, you know what's good for you. And I know from experience, for me, and why I went into scientific training as well, because for me, a lot of times there were no alternatives. Yes. My mom is life skilled, but not very educated. I'm the first in our family who ever did an A-level or went to university. So there was no such thing as, widen your view and listen to more perspectives, and then you draw your own thing out of it. There was no such thing that I got on my path. I had to learn it the hard way, which is okay, and I appreciate, because now it's so much easier for me to, and it's not about a general doubt, it's just a certain awareness that, there is no ultimate truth.
Yes.
There is none. We grow up in this dualistic world of black or white, alternative or mainstream, and but exactly what we're saying, it's about finding the balance, whatever feels good to you. And this might change. It doesn't mean that if you decide now that you're going to go to a hemopath, that you'll never, ever, ever see a mainstream doctor. Or it doesn't mean that once you go to an osteopath to sort out your back issues, it doesn't mean that you might not end up having a surgery at one day, if that is what you believe will help you.
Yeah.
And a great thing what you just said there, so the information we get does also have a big impact on us. And we were talking about this perfect image just before in the comments, and that is also a big factor, this perfectionism we all have or seem to be drawn to with social media and all that general medial impact, and how the world thrives at the moment. Perfectionism is one of the worst forms of self-abuse. So people always think about self-destructive behaviors, chewing your fingernails, cutting yourself, having a drug addiction or whatever. And I love Gabor Mate's definition of an addiction, where he says anything that gives you short-term pleasure but actually harms you on the long-term perspective, that, but you still don't leave it, that's an addiction. So it can be retail therapy, as a friend of mine calls it really nicely. It can be, sitting in front of a computer, can be exercising, can be anything. And we're all just human. Just make sure, again, there as well, there's a balance, that you don't feel that you need to do these things and And perfectionism is one of the most common but yet absolutely underestimated forms of self-abusive behavior.
Yes, you're right. In fact, I was in tears this morning. I've got this echo again. Can you hear the echo? Yeah.
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. It's just me. But I was in tears this morning because I realized that I have a habit of shame, of feeling ashamed at different times. And because we just moved, and because we're trying to keep our lifestyle going just the way it is, and trying to get all this work done, because if I agree to do work, I think I should honor my commitment. And it just feels like there's so much of me going out at the moment and not much coming in. And I just feel like I can't cope with getting it all done. And I just feel I just had this moment of beating myself up about not being able to achieve. And I just had to burst into tears, and it just felt so good to be able to do that, to have that moment of realizing, there is too much going on. You've got to cut yourself some slack. Now, you were mentioning earlier that with fibromyalgia, and in fact, we've got Fantastic 50s is talking about Crohn's disease as well. It's another one of these illnesses that often doctors say, it's nothing to do with us, we don't know how to do it. So there's like Crohn's, fibromyalgia, CFS, and you were talking about that it starts here or often starts here. And then there's also mental, there's also sort of disordered thinking that comes up that also can relate back to the body, that might start in the body and then go there. So you've got two different pathways to health and healing crises. So your mind can cause physical problems, and your physical can cause mind problems. And when you look at doctoring, or general GPs, where we think they can do it all, it's all about the physical. And then you trained in psychology, didn't you? You've also got psychologists that train there and not so much in the body. And we've got all these different disciplines all dotted around, and nobody really connecting the dots.
Yeah.
There's also something really huge that I don't think gets put in, and that's dentistry.
Yeah.
Dentistry is a huge industry. And if all the teeth are sort of aligned to your meridians, you'd think the dentists and doctors would be speaking as well.
Yeah. And you know what's really funny? Thanks for bringing this up. Because again, when I started studying psychology, I was smirking a bit, because you get all those theories and all that, and speaking about Freud and Jung and all them people, and the funny thing is, I kept on thinking, yeah, but this is not how humans work. In the pharmacy, you have a blood pressure from higher than 80 to 120 declared by WHO is too high. So but that's a general thing, and I understand that in order to do research, you need to have a classification, but that's not how we work. And exactly what you're saying. And already now it is accredited by science that body and mind do work together, but still we treat mental and physical disease separately.
Yeah.
That's why, and I don't get it. And it's really crazy. That's why it's interesting. And that's why I keep calling myself, despite #reform pharmacist, also that I do unconventional psychotherapy, because most of the things, maybe not so much at the beginning, but when we dig deeper, it's going to be things where you think like, I would have not expected this. And I think the quote of my clients I hear the most is, I've never done this before. And yeah, but it's so important, like to align this, and to I had this very much often at cars as well. Exactly what you said. It's the connection between thought, judgment, feeling, body response, thought again, and it works. It works in all directions. So understanding this, that, your mind can make you sick, and your body can make your mind sick, and all these things, and how much it takes. And, for these things, our technology is really good. There is the World Wide Web out there, and I wouldn't recommend Google so much as the potential source to believe in, but generally get out and look for things and alternatives on what could be the reason behind the disease, like fibromyalgia, CFS, we've just been talking about. It's so much with trapped emotions and just trauma we have been suppressing all our lives, again, just to go on, function, be a good parent now, do a really big movement with 3 children, but still keeping all your appointments up and all that. And it's interesting that you talked about the shame, because that is something I'm really easily drawn to as well. The worst thing you can do with shame, well, in that case, the best thing, but the worst for the shame is, like you just did, actually get out with it and talk about it, because shame doesn't like to be seen, and then it already goes away.
I noticed it yesterday, because we've moved into a house where we're like sharing. We're sharing part of the house with a lovely lady, and so we're kind of becoming a sort of bigger family. And she has a cleaner for her side of the house, and Carl mentioned that we could have a cleaner on our side of the house, and instantly I felt this shame of First of all, I want to clean my own mess. Thank you very much. I don't want someone sticking their nose into our belongings. I don't want anyone in our space because, it's our space. It has to feel like ours. But then I realized there was this shame of feeling judged. And then I felt the shame that Carl would suggest it because I thought, it was just a massive shame fest.
Yeah. Probably thinking, oh, am I not cleaning good enough and all that? And And at the end of the day, I mean, for me, these things often are as well drawn to, I don't deserve that as well, But besides the guilt and the shame about, do I need that? Am I not good enough for all that? But I don't think I deserve it either. That, having the luxury of having a cleaner. And I mean, let's face it, she's probably cleaning even more households. She's probably not interested at all and doesn't got no time at all to look at your stuff. And the funny thing I keep saying to my clients as well, you will never stop people from judging, but it's up to them what they will judge. And it seems to be, in the energy you're there now, and the person who probably does clean the other half, it seems to be also an energy you attracted in, which is probably not that judgmental from a fear point of view, more from a loving point of view, even if so. But take for yourself, go inside and actually ask yourself, how much would it raise your life quality if you'd actually had the big burden off your shoulders that you also, plus all the things you're already doing, need to look after the house is clean. And if it gives you this much of more life quality, oh my God, go for it. I mean, lucky you. You deserve it. You deserve it.
Well, I think when I notice discomfort now, I do ask myself, what is that? Who is that? Which part of me is talking right now? And when I realized it was shame, because shame takes like you're right, shame likes to hide, doesn't like to let you know it's there. But it was so insidious, that feeling. It was like creeping in the background. I just knew it was shame. And once I named it, so I know that I'm going to be thinking about it over the weekend and, getting that back into balance. I just want to carry on with a few more comments because I didn't touch on Fantastic 50. So she was saying her husband was diagnosed with Crohn's and put on steroids just because his dad had it. Mark discovered he was lactose intolerant. Isn't that interesting? And the doctor told him healthy eating would not help him with the disease. Oh, my goodness. Sorry to laugh. That's awful. We've got Jenny saying, we've had our invitation for a particular vaccine. It says it's not mandatory, but remember to do it to protect yourself and your environment. So they play on your morals and you're the bummer if you refuse. There is definitely, I think when they use tactics like that, like putting shame on you, or allowing you to feel ashamed by letting the team down, that's coercion. And coercion means at some level it's not a free choice. When we were talking about food earlier, I think, any advert that sells food, you have to be really suspicious of, because good food doesn't need to be advertised. When you see yogurt drinks or little happy faces and they're smiling, they're chatting, they've got a little tune and they're selling you these like particular types of string cheese or something, for a fact that there's something going wrong. When things have to be sold, you have to wonder what's behind it. Because if it was such a great thing, everybody would want it with no coercion. And so Jenny's echoing something. Stephen Wells is talking about shame now. He's saying shame only has power when you negatively judge the thing yourself. Yes, it does. Definitely. I am going to be talking to the little child in me that first felt that shame. And coming to understand it this weekend. And I may well do a show about it, who knows. String and cheese in the same sentence tells me it's no good. That's perfect.
Well, what you said there with the advertisement, it's the same for all the pharmaceuticals. Why would you need to advertise it if it's so great?
Yeah, exactly. And Fantastic 50 is saying she's not having any of those V words again. Yeah, I mean, I totally respect everybody's decision to make their own choices. But I know for myself that when I've had two sets of vaccines that were travel jabs, which I didn't need to have, but I decided to go traveling to the Far East. And so I had a set done in my early 20s. The same week I ended up in hospital, and I was told I had pyelonephritis, like kidney infection. And then about a decade later, I decided to go to Bali, and I had a ton of vaccines. I just went to my doctor and said, I'm going away. Which vaccines do I need to take? And he got in this book and he looked and he said, you need this, 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 and this. So I ended up having DTaP, which is like horrible. I had loads. I had something like 8 or 9 vaccines within a 2-week period. And lo and behold, I was in hospital for 3 days this time. They tested me for all sorts of things because they just couldn't work out what was wrong with me. And I said, is it possible there could be some connection to the fact that I've just had all of this? No, definitely not. They wouldn't even listen. They wouldn't even look at what I'd had. It was like completely ignored. And then lo and behold, a year later, I start learning about what's in them, and I start going back through my history. So for me, I will be making the same decision as you, Fantastic 50s. But I think it should be a decision that everyone has the freedom to make themselves. We have to listen inside. So we were talking earlier about men healing and female healing. Do you see much of a difference there?
Absolutely. I mean, I could write books about man bias for women, woman bias for men. It's so funny from the pharmaceutical point of view. And it's funny as well. So I don't know. I'm guessing this is an international thing, but that men tend to suffer more. from physical diseases or diseases really just, and women go like, come on, just a bit of an earache. So but on the other hand, not so much the moaning, but generally the fact of acknowledging it maybe a little earlier. And I think this also comes from the fact that we as women are built to give birth, so we are built to be able to withstand a lot more pain. Not saying that that men can't, but generally I think that the whole how would you say that, the way we are built is different, and of course the way we think is different. So a credit to them that they kind of notice it earlier. So it's good that they actually follow this. Even though sometimes they then have the expectation for the wife or the doctor or whoever to fix it instead of themselves. But interestingly, I found that women are more drawn to push it away and go on with it. And still function than men actually are. So men are drawn, in my experience, men are more drawn to actually give themselves the time and let it solve itself rather than taking something and move on. Whereas women usually don't take something and still move on.
We're all doomed, actually.
Yeah, so that's my experience in that regard. But it would be interesting. Maybe we can get some more comments on that. Because that is only how it perceives to me from the outside. But I don't know what's going on inside. So that would be interesting. Maybe we can get some more comments there.
Well, Gary's still in the conversation. So, Gary, how do you heal? I love this comment. This is brilliant. I'm due for my vaccination on Friday. I suppose growing a prehensile tail might come in handy. I wish you lots of luck with it. I hope it is exactly what you're hoping for, Gary. And I kind of hope you don't get the tail, unless it would be really handy. I mean, I guess if you're planting seeds in your garden, you could be walking along with your tail behind, like digging a little furrow, and then you can go back and drop the seeds in. That could be quite handy. Fantastic 50s is saying, yes, everyone should choose for themselves. Jenny is adding in, my 15-year-old son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. We as parents asked how they arrived at this diagnosis, and the answer was, for example, that he kept the door open for the accompanying staff in the clinic while the others just let the door shut. So this was a strange behavior for his age. I replied, I thought this was a form of respect that we were trying to impart in education. Oh my goodness, this is This is crazy, isn't it? That
Yeah.
there are these set rules that if you see this, this means this. You know, like I remember when my first son was born, and at that time I used to take my children to the doctors only to have the babies weighed and like their measurements taken. You know, I thought it was really important to do. I've stopped doing that because I realized that you know, our son was growing perfectly for him. He like we had a nurse tell us that he'd shrunk, that he'd lost length and lost weight. But it was in particular, she said that he'd lost length and that I wasn't feeding him right. And I was just like, okay, science aside, this is just bullshit. So I was like, I'm not taking into these silly things anymore. But anyway, you know, they had this idea that you have to grow this, and if you're not, you're doing something wrong. And it just was unhelpful, because I think children grow at their own stage, and you know if your child is thickening, and there are signs to look out for sure. But you know, something like a door being kept open is a bit daft, isn't it? We've got a message from Carl. He's come in. Let's see what he's saying. This is so good that I've had to stop the hoovering that I was doing to gain your approval and diminish my shame. Oh, my love, I can't believe you're feeling shame. Oh, let's talk about this over the weekend. And Stephen is saying, ha ha ha, I think the opposite. Men tend to go until they break the whole man up and carry on, rather than taking the time and going early on, taking the time early on to heal. So, okay, thank you for that, Stephen. I wonder if anyone else is going to have any comments. Where else should we go in this conversation? Because the whole purpose of this was to talk about finding balance between the mainstream and the alternative. What do you think prevents us from getting that balance, Jenny?
I mean, what we've been talking about already, that the fear we are dragged into very easily by all sorts of impulses we have in the outside, really. I mean, if we think about the all-day average life of a 9-to-5 job, you might commute to work a certain time, being in a train or whatever. Then we all have the beautiful mobile phone devices and all that buzz. So I think Ellen Watts who said silence is one of the big gateways to your true self. And I think really just saying it as it is, just shut the fuck up for quite a while. It does do a big thing. I mean, Tanya is does such a great work as well with her breathing she offers. And this is another really thing where already somebody said it's more the simple and easy things. Don't overcomplicate it. So sitting down and just breathe in order to connect with yourself again, or like I do, take people out in nature and, you know, just hug a tree, things like that, to allow yourself to actually, how can you actually listen or hear your own voice if you keep being distracted from the outside and not even giving it a chance to come up? And and then if we are more grounded within ourselves and actually hearing this voice, then it's about to gain trust with it as well. And self-trust, I found a good way to develop this bond again with yourself, if you might have not learned it already from a very early age on, when you have beautiful parents like you are, and really listening to your children and be there. But the thing is, so often in developing any sort of relationship, we tend to compromise in order to please others. Yeah. And then what happens is, every time we do that, every time we say yes to somebody else, we say no to ourselves.
Yeah.
And with this programming, we actually learn and take away all the self-trust, because we learn we're taking decisions against ourselves, but for others. So starting with really, really, really little things and noticing, you know what, I really don't feel like hoovering now. I might do it later, but now I'm just going to sit here for 5 minutes and do nothing and just have my cup of tea and, you know, take it or leave it. And being really, I think one of the big things that people where you feel the energy that they're just within themselves. I think we both agree on Tania is she's so radiating so much love.
She really is.
And I think a big thing to get there is not to compromise so much. And you know, the greatest gift you can give to the world is to be yourself. Of course, it's hard to find that out, and we need to learn who we're not on in order to find out who we are.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is, I mean, take it as a game, and nobody, like I said, everybody will, or most of us constantly judge. That's part of human nature. It's down to you whether you judge, you know, in doubts for the person or in doubts against the person. If you go with fear or love, that's still down to you. But you can't take this off somebody else, no matter how much you're trying to please them. So, and also being a great role model for others. When you stand up for your own decisions, when you express your needs, then others can follow and can actually see, all right, look. And like we had the example with in the show this morning with your husband, when he was saying, yeah, and then I said that and I wasn't sure if I brought it across right, and you know, all the things that are new in life, they feel awkward at the beginning. Just remember your first driving lesson. Oh my God, how awkward did it feel to steer around with this car on the road, even just holding the lane. So, but it is, the more often you do it, the more often the easier it will go off your hand. Also, expressing your needs, and then others can actually see, oh my God, look. And if they don't like it, that's okay, because everybody's darling is everybody's idiot. And at the end of the day, it takes away your energy again much more. Just like suppressing the emotions, suppressing your needs is also suppressing your joy in life. So finding this balance in actually asking yourself, and for me personally, I can only recommend to do this. For others, there might be different techniques for everyone. Everybody's different. But I really like and find with my clients as well that a big difference is to write it down, to actually make it visible, to think it through. Because when you write it down, you have to think it through. And we are all so aware of the things we don't want in life. But this is law of attraction. This is what we draw in. So take some time, and it doesn't mean that you're now not doing anything else for a week despite writing your life book. That is more like when you notice, oh, you know what, I've just had this little walk, 20 minutes out here, and I've just sat down for a minute just listening to the birds or the water or whatever. That really felt great. Yeah, there's no harm in taking a little journal and write down, walk, good. You know, and then next time you have watched, I don't know, you felt a bit blah and you thought, oh, all I want is to be brain dead now. And then you watched a Hollywood movie and then you've been dreaming crazily, and next morning you wake up not feeling good. Then you might as well notice thriller, no good. So all these things really get to know yourself.
Yes, that's so true. We took off for a little picnic down the lane yesterday, and it was so nice just sitting on the ground, and it was really sunny. And like 2 nights ago, we went to see the fireflies. So we're in our pajamas and our shoes, and we took out one torch. So it's like me, Carl, and the kids, and on our front lawn there are all these fireflies just like minding their own business, lighting the way. It was such a joyful experience. That's lovely. We got one final comment that I'd like to share, and that's just from Jimmy White, and he's saying, be yourself because everyone else is taken. Yes. Aren't they just? Yeah.
Beautiful.
So go on.
Sorry. What you said there, that's another really beautiful way to center yourself, just to focus on one of your senses, or even one after another. But this really brings you back into the present moment, and then you will gain so much more clarity about what is good for you. And don't doubt that. Don't doubt your intuition. Whatever is said by the outside, and I love Jimmy's comment, you don't want to live just a copy of somebody else's life. You want to live your unique life.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, we've just had another one come in from Stephen saying, treat everything as a meditation, even work. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. So if people have enjoyed listening to you today and they want to reach out to you and have some unconventional psychotherapy with you or explore and jump into the unknown with you, what's the best way that they can engage with you, Jenni B?
Yeah, you beautifully shared my Facebook link there, and I'm also on Instagram. Everything else, well, I could give you my phone number now, but I'm not sure if that's a good idea.
Should we just stick to email?
That's a good idea. Yeah, beautifully. Yeah,
because then you get a little bit more discretion. You don't have to.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So that is jbarraccu@gmail.com. Very, very conventional.
Okay. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to put it in post-production.
Thank you.
Barraccu@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Okie dokes. That's wonderful. Well, I'd love to thank all of the wonderful people that stuck with us throughout this chat, because we've been on for an hour, almost an hour and a half now. So it's been wonderful to explore this. And thank you so much for all your comments, because that has also helped steer our conversation. Actually, we've got one final comment from Jenni. I owe all that realization and awareness of what the balance in life is actually due to the insights that I've received in recent years from my youngest son. My husband, who is so dutiful when it comes to work, is still struggling with it. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I do think we really learn from those dearest to us and close to us, and I think it's great. We've got a few more coming in. Thank you both. Fab show from Stephen. And thank you, Louisa and Jennifer. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure we'll be back at some point, because I like to have a natter, and I think you do too, don't you, Jennifer? So wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Go lightly, go peacefully, be in love. And have you got a final word?
Yeah, just thank you so much for the chance to speak to you, Louisa. It was my pleasure, as usual. I'm really so grateful that I've met the Munsons in my life. And thank you, everybody, for taking part of the show, sharing all the beautiful comments, just being here with us, holding the space and enjoying the energy.
Thank you. And thank you, for coming into our lives as well. And we've got more people coming in. We've got prayers from Jimmy. We've got Katerina Sarau. I didn't realize she was listening. So thank you for all the sharing. She's saying, thank you for being with us. I really appreciate that. And Stephen, I think this has to be our final comment. Carl can get on with the hoovering again now. Yes, he can. Thank you so much. So lots of love to you all. Connect again very soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, then why not support today's guest at the Higher Self Expo in July 2021? The Higher Self Expo is a worldwide 24-hour event with 33 guest speakers who are all sharing their wisdom and exploring the connection between science and spirituality. To register your place and find out more, go to www.higherselfexpo.com.